a world where we have everything and it's still not enough, we're often left wondering, is this really it?
Deep inside, you know there's more to life. You're ready to leave behind the old push your way through and claim the deeper, more meaningful life that's calling you.
That's what we invite you to explore with us.
We're your hosts,
Stephanie Allen
and Maren and and this is the Soulful Leader Podcast.
Yay!
Welcome to the Soulful Leader Podcast. I'm Maren and I'm here with Stephanie. And we were chatting about having the right people work with us or for us, but in the wrong positions, in the wrong places. So the reason that came up is recently my dog was ill and she spent a couple days at our vet, and then my vet had to close. And so she spent a couple days at a different place. It was kind of an emergency place. And I went to take her back to our vet. And when I called, there was a very abrupt woman who answered the phone, and she was more of a gatekeeper than a customer service person in that she basically ended up saying to me that I needed to find a new vet or take her to the ER because they had no space for me. And I was in a place of vulnerability in my dog was sick and we didn't know what was going on. And we're in this process. It's been a week of this. And I found myself matching her energy and getting argumentative and getting like, I couldn't find any solution and she was not offering me any solutions. She was just saying, nope, we have no room for you. And I was like, are you firing me as a client? I've been with this vet for like 10, 15 years. And she's like, no, ma'am, you're not listening to me. And that was like kind of the tone of the voice of the whole thing and I was just I was hurt. I was offended. I had no space for any solutions. I didn't even know the questions to ask of like, well, do you have room tomorrow? Do you have like, what are my options? She gave me no options and she hung up. And so then I called a different vet because I was like, okay, I need to find another vet. And she's like, this wonderful woman, right person for the right job, answered the phone, and she had me in tears because immediately she said, I'm so sorry. I wish we could take you on. We have no room and you're going to find that everywhere right now. We're overbooked ourselves. I'm so sorry. We can't help you. Do you know the local ERs? And I was like, well, I only know the ones that are open when you all close. And she helped me. She spent 10 minutes on the phone with me, helping me find other options for my dog. And I thought, why didn't the person at my vet do that?
I think what happens is we get so caught up in matter of fact instead of human connection. And yeah. I don't know, maybe it's because we've become much more distant. Not only like, we've become so much more virtual, so much more less hands-on or in your face. I've seen that again and again, even after the pandemic, of just walking in my neighborhood where people used to make eye contact and just kind of nod or wave, when you're going down your driveway to your cottage or, in this rural area that I live. And there's less of that connection. There's more of that focus on, okay, I got to get here and I got to do that. And it's like we're leaving that human connection behind. And how important that human connection is, it makes all the difference, because even what you're sharing of like having that first experience where there was no human connection, there was no heart, there was no soul, and then going to a complete stranger, to another vet that you don't even have any kind of relationship with, and yet this woman took the time to make connection, and that's all that mattered. I mean that woman that made connection with you opened your heart. Yeah. Because her heart was open. And I think that's a real key. It's like you had said about, you kind of match that first person's energy, because that first person's energy, your heart was open and you called with an open heart, and she was closed down. She shut down. And then in order for you to protect yourself, you shut your heart down and and I think that's what happens a lot of times in a lot of places, a lot of relationships, a lot of work, a lot of, it's all the facts, ma'am, just the business,
Yeah.
and
It's so interesting. There are a couple different things I wanted to say about that. Is just this morning we were talking about the fact that I run a networking group, which is a women's networking group, and it's somebody recently said to me, "Well, it's not. I wish it were more professional." And what she meant by that was that there was less of the personal in it, that it was just business.
Mhm.
And I think that speaks to what you're talking about. And we are people who are in business. And when we separate business and personal, we end up with a separation inside of ourselves. And that's the beginning of schizophrenia, right? Like when we separate ourselves. And I think about this even when I hear work-life balance of like it's got to be an integration, not a
Mhm.
balancing, because that's we're encouraging separate parts of ourselves, and really what we want to do is bring those parts together and be in communication, and exactly what you're saying of
Mhm.
out there with people. We want to have a human connection, and also inside of ourselves. That's so important. When we separate out these elements and say, well, that doesn't belong over here, it actually creates a divide within us. And we're feeling that. We see it in our country right now. The
Mhm.
huge divide in our country. I know you experience it in your country. We're seeing it in France. We're seeing it all over the world. This
Mhm.
divide that's getting wider. Well, hmm, maybe it has something to do with the fact that we're actually keeping this life, our personal life, separate from that life, our business life, and they're not two separate
Yeah,
things.
I think that is actually the dis-ease, is when
Mm.
we try to separate it. It's like separating your heart from your head, or separating your right side from your left side, or your inhale from your exhale. You can't. It's meant to be harmonious. It's meant to be an integration of both the wholeness. And, I recently just came back from a funeral of this dear woman that had passed, and I think it's a really good exercise to presence yourself at your own funeral. Like imagine,
Mm.
going to your own funeral, and not about who or how many are there. It's not so much that, but what is said. What what is the what is the sermon that would be led? What would people say to your loved ones about you?
Yeah.
And I think that's a real key. And I was very present to that myself, of like, I didn't know this woman for very long, but she really deeply touched my heart. She was an amazing soul, and I didn't know her family at all. And so there's a part of me that says, well, why bother, right? Why bother even going? And I'm like, well, wait a minute, because then I'm just the therapist. I'm just the transaction. And I'm not.
Mm.
I'm a human being. I cared about her deeply. And I wanted to share also how much she cared about her loved ones, and the stories and the things that she left. That I think if we look at our lives differently, because they are very short and very quick, and really your stuff, it doesn't really matter at the end of it. That people fight over it
Yeah.
more than anything, but it's the memories, it's the way one is with one in one's life, how they orchestrated even their business. It's like, we talk about integrity, like, it's such an interesting thing, isn't it? It's like, why would you hire somebody who doesn't have a lot of integrity? Is it just to make the almighty dollar and to
Mm.
get things done? And yet, when someone does have an integrity, it's actually going to cost you so much more than it will cost you money too. It will cost you your money, but it'll also cost relationships and trust and value. There's so much more at risk, and I don't think we look at that.
So
Like, just going back to your experience, it's
yeah.
like going back to the experience of, here you had been a 15-year client, a very loyal client to this vet, and had good service. That one interaction where there was no soul, And then you called someone you had no relationship whatsoever, and she completely risked everything to make a relationship, even though she wasn't knew that she wasn't going to get your business.
Right.
But I can guarantee you, I'll bet you anything. Just even talking about this wonderful woman that made a soulful connection with you, she'll get business from referrals from you.
Yeah.
And if you're in need of a vet, and they have space,
And there's space.
you will go. Like we don't look at that, do we?
I do want to say that I I started the whole podcast with the right person, wrong job.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to shame this woman because I don't know what was going on in her life. If she was having a bad day, if, like everything was going nuts there and she had no space and no time to do anything with this client who's like, but I need to get in. My dog is sick. We
Mm-hmm.
can't handle it right now. So she had no space for whatever reason. I happened to have talked to her before and know that this is her normal way of being.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a leader, what I was thinking about once I got my feet back under me and I could actually think, what I was thinking about is like, it's my responsibility as the leader, as the vet in this case, to know my people's strengths and weaknesses, because that vet, and there happen to be two of them in practice there, they don't know that as a client, I'm ready to walk out the door because of being treated badly once. And so I look at that too, of like, okay, I had one bad interaction over 15 years. Would I really leave them? That's not fair to them. What needs to happen from my end is for me to communicate in a good way and not a bashing way that like this experience happened and you might want to do something about it. And if it happens again, then maybe look at going to a different vet. So there are multiple levels that I got to look at for myself. The first one was, what do I do with all the anger and hurt? So I had mentioned this in a podcast a couple weeks ago, is the first thing I did was I wrote the angry email. I was angry at this person, at being treated like this, at being not valued as a customer, and all this stuff, right?
Wah,
And
wah,
I
wah, wah, wah.
why, poor me, right?
Yeah.
It's all about, because the whole world is about me, right? And that's where that anger and that person, she needed to be heard.
But you didn't send it.
I sent it to myself.
Right. Right.
I sent it to myself because it needed to come out. And I found that when I talk to people about it, it creates almost like a vicious cycle of a meme. Well, I need to tell this person, I need to tell that person, I need to tell, like, they just need to, like, I get vindicated. And I didn't want to be vindicated. I wanted a solution. That's all I wanted. And not at somebody else's expense, not at this woman's expense. She's probably brilliant at her job and shouldn't be talking to people. They need a better people person in that position. Whatever. I don't know. So then the next step for me was, what's a different story that I could tell? And that you just heard a couple of them, of like, she's brilliant at her job. She shouldn't be talking to people. They were overly busy. They were this. You're like, I don't know. So once I tell a different story, now I can come from a place of compassion, and I can look at the fact that I can be the angry client and try and find a different vet when at this point I called several and nobody has any openings. Or I can honor the fact that they've served me well for 15 years. And maybe they just need a hand in saying, hey, did you know that this is going on? Because if she talked to me like that, she's not just talking to me like that. There are other clients, and have you lost other clients? And there may be a better position for her, you know?
And sometimes I mean, I hear what you're saying with that too. It's like it's an opportunity, but sometimes, it's a great opportunity to go inward as well and go, you have to feel it to heal it. And it's sometimes, when you're raw and you're open and it's not received, to also then go, okay, what am I needing right now? How do I need to really, and you did that by feeling that emotion. I just want to recognize that you took a moment to feel it by writing it out and sending that email to yourself just so that you could witness it and also be heard by basically another part of yourself that could then come in and nurture you and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry that that happened." And not like poor me or any of those things, but just to give that space of like, that was really hard. It was really scary.
Kind of like the other vet tech or, person who
Mm-hmm.
answered the phone gave me the space to open my heart again. And I will say, I was, by the time I got off the phone with that other woman who gave me 10 minutes of her time and was going to get nothing in return, I was bawling. I was like, thank you so
Yeah.
much. Oh my God. Right. And yeah, so it does when you can feel that, when you can be in a place of opening up again and not staying in that closed down angry place, it makes space. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where the solutions come from.
And I think as leaders too, I'm just thinking of this woman that was, the angry gatekeeper, so to speak, to your vet. I think there's a real self-awareness to be able to say, okay, wait a minute. I'm flooded, I'm up to here to my head. I have no more space to say I need to take some time for myself because I'm in reaction
Mm.
and to walk away, to take a moment. And I think that's where where in our lives we're not doing that of just saying, because we let somebody else have it or we beat ourselves up about it instead of saying,
Yeah.
wait a minute, I think I need something because I'm in reaction and I want to find a new place to meet this person at. And I
Mm.
can't right now. So again, coming back to like I need help. And I think, coming back to the vet knowing their staff, their gifts and their strengths. Like we know this too ourselves. Sometimes people we think they know their gifts and strengths. And then as you start to kind of move into something, you realize, oh, that really isn't my gift or strength. Everybody tells me it is, but I'm not really passionate about it. I'm not really interested in it. And it's really taking a lot of energy for me to do that. I think that self-awareness is so key on both ends,
Yeah.
as an employer, as a leader, and as yourself in relationship with life, with world of like,
I went through that at the studio. I had hired a woman who had said, like, yes, I love working at the front desk. I'm really good with details. I can handle all of this stuff. And about 2 months into it, we had to have a conversation. It was like, that's not your thing, is it? She goes, no, I really, really like it. And I'm like, come on, let's be honest, because you're actually all of the details keep falling behind the between the cracks, and what is the majority of your time spent doing? What do you really love doing? And as I talked to her, it started like I had to actually start to point out of like, you love creating the like the advertising for us, don't you? She's like, oh yeah, that really excites me, but I can do this other stuff. There was this, but I can. And
mm,
I guess the thing for me is, just because you can doesn't mean that you should. And I have to
yeah,
tell myself that all the freaking time. And I think
mm-hmm,
most solopreneurs are in that position of they have to do everything and they can do everything. And then you get addicted to it because you get chemicals. Your body is going to flood with chemicals of, we can do
mm-hmm,
this, right? Or even the anger chemicals like that. We do get the chemicals, right? So then we keep turning to that and turning to that. And I was
mm-hmm,
like, just because I can doesn't mean I should.
yeah,
And for us as leaders, that's looking at ourselves. It's also looking at our teams of they can, what's the cost to having them do that? What's the cost to them? Like this woman, pretty much probably constantly in anger. There's a cost to her, right? That she's experiencing in her own body. What's the cost to my business? Am I losing customers because this person's in the wrong position,
mm-hmm,
right? And I'm not saying get rid of the person, just find the right place for that person
yeah.
because they have a gift.
Because I think, the big thing that gets in the way on both of those is ego,
Mm,
pride and ego, and I have a good acronym for ego is edging good out,
yeah.
and we punish ourselves, we beat ourselves up, we try to make it harder, instead of just saying, what would be the best place for me? Or can I ask for help? Because ego will also stop you from asking for help because we think, oh, they'll think I'm incapable. Well, guess what? You probably are, but that's okay. That's okay. Now you're asking for help so that you can become capable, and if it's, I kind of have that little rule in myself of like, if I'm struggling with something and it's been longer than 15 minutes, I need to ask for help because I'm beating myself up and my ego's in the way and I'm edging good out. So who is it that I know that could help me with this? Or what do I need to learn to help me with this? Like, get help. I think we have such a crappy thing about getting help.
I heard you say that. I think you had said that on a team meeting at one point, someplace recently. I don't think it was on a podcast, but it might have been. And I applied that because it stuck in my head of if I'm struggling with something for more than 15 minutes, that's just ridiculous. Get help, ask for help. And I did come up against my ego. And it was not pretty. I'll just put it that way. Of like, I had to have this whole on probably a 15-minute conversation with myself of, you can't ask for help. No, that's ridiculous. This is silly. Right? Like the back and forth.
Well, and I can also hear a lot of people saying, well, I do ask for help and I can't get it. I can't get the help that I need. I hear that one a lot too. And that is also a dopamine fix, a chemical fix too, because we tend to ask people who can't help us, who either don't have the capacity to help us, don't have the skill set to help us, or, they just can't help us, or, the time, whatever it is. And that's another ego block of like saying, what if I could ask somebody who could actually help me?
Right. Because see, when we ask somebody who can't help us, we get to be right about the fact that I shouldn't
There
ask
isn't
for
any,
help.
yeah, I shouldn't ask for help because there's nobody that can do it anyway.
I have
Yep.
proof it doesn't work and I've tried that. And yeah, then you just get to be right. So do you want right? Do you want to be right, or do you want to do you actually want help? That's a great question to ask ourselves.
And then sometimes we just don't even know that we need help. So I always say, how do you know when you need help? You're irritated, you're flooded, you're like reactive, or you're in resignation, like, why bother anyway? That's when you need to ask for help. And sometimes even asking for help in the way of saying, I know I need to ask for help and I don't even know how to ask for it, but this is how I'm feeling, or this is what's going on. I think being vulnerable, being real is so refreshing. And it's coming right back to what we said right at the very beginning of that phone call with that vet. It's like if we actually had someone who was just dropped in real and could relate and connect,
and
it
say,
changes everything.
like, we could have had the same conversation from a totally different place, and there would have been space for solutions then. Of, you know what? I'm very sorry. We really care about Jemma. She's like, and that's the name of my dog. She was here last week, and we have no space at all. No space today or no space ever? Well, that's a good question. Like, we could have gotten to quite, like, we couldn't even get to that. There was no space for anything at all. And because I dropped into that energy with her, neither of us had space. So that's a great lesson for me of that's one of the things that I'm working on is I want to be able to maintain my presence and not drop to somebody else's level of anger or whatever disgruntledness so that I can keep having space for solutions.
And you could just drop in your own heart of saying, well, what would be the most loving question to ask right now, or what would be the most loving way to be with myself right now and with them? I think it's not an either or, it's a both and.
Yeah.
So it's not about me against them. It's about where do I need to go that will bring both of us into a whole new place of love and kindness and connection.
Yeah. Yeah, because the conversation was definitely a me against you. One of us is going to win. It was like an arm wrestling. And we've all experienced that, right? The arm wrestling, the verbal arm wrestling.
Yeah, the one who wears out first is the other one gets to win, It's like, what if there wasn't, win-lose? What if we could? And I really do hold that. It's like, to create a win-win means we both have to let go of our agenda and our ego.
Yeah.
We have to
get to it. And we need the space to be able to do it. So, Well, I hope that as leaders, one of the things that you took away from today is that both internally yourself and for your teams, there is a way to have the right person in the right position. And that's actually what we do is we help people to find that. What are what are your team's gifts and strengths? What are your gifts and strengths? And how do you stay in that place so that you're in flow, so that you have the space for extra, energy and for solutions instead of devolving to where where I was, right? So that your customers also are at a higher place and you're not verbally arm wrestling with them. So if you'd like to work with us, feel free to give us a call, contact us. You can find us on our professional website, which is tslp.life. It stands for the Soulful Leader Project.life. And if you'd like to hear more podcasts, you can find us on our podcast website, which is thesoulfulleaderpodcast.com. You can also reach us on social media, which is The Soulful Leaders. We'll see you all next week on the Soulful Leader Podcast.
And that wraps up another episode of the Soulful Leader Podcast with your hosts, Stephanie Allen
and Maren Oslack. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to dive deeper, head over to our website at thesoulfulleaderpodcast.com.
Until next time.